It was supposed to be just another game, just another Saturday. The sun was setting on the field, casting a golden glow over everything. The sound of sneakers against turf, the smell of freshly cut grass. It was the perfect setting. But everything changed in an instant. Charlie lay still on the field, his body frozen, as if time had stopped. His breath came in shallow gasps, and his heart pounded in his chest. But he couldn't move, not an inch. His legs were heavy, unresponsive. The weight of his body pressed into the ground, like something impossible. He could hear a faint buzzing sound, like a warning siren. It was the sound of a life unraveling. In the background, he heard a voice, his teammate's voice, panicked and urgent, shouting his name.
Charlie, get up! We need you!
But Charlie couldn't get up. He couldn't move. His mind screamed at him to respond, to get back on his feet. But his body didn't listen. It was as if he was trapped in someone else's body. Then, the pain came. It wasn't like anything he'd ever felt before. It was sharp, electric, like 1,000 volts of energy coursing through his spine. His back felt crushed, like something monstrous had fallen on him. The feeling made him want to scream, but no sound came. His throat was dry, constricted, like a fist wrapped around his chest. His body was a stranger to him now. The world around him faded. Distant voices, the sound of the wind, everything dissolved into a blur. Before he knew it, he was loaded into an ambulance. The flashing lights painted everything red, like the world was slipping away from him. Sirens screamed in his ears, but he couldn't focus. His vision blurred, everything fading into darkness. That's all he remembers. The cold metal of the gurney, the echo of the sirens. When he woke up, he was in a hospital bed. The sterile smell of antiseptic hit him first. The soft flutter of curtains by the window, the distant hum of machines. But something felt off. Something didn't feel right. He wasn't alone. A flower rested on the table beside him, along with a card. He couldn't bring himself to read. He tried to move, to sit up, to take control, but nothing happened. He felt numb. Panic surged through him like a tidal wave, swallowing him whole. His legs wouldn't respond. Not a twitch, not a muscle. He couldn't feel them. He couldn't even move his toes. A loud cry escaped his lips. Raw, desperate. Nurses rushed in. His mother behind them, her face pale from crying, her eyes wide with fear. She reached for him, but Charlie couldn't focus on her. His mind raced. What was happening to him? The doctor stepped forward, holding Charlie's chart, his expression unreadable. The words that followed would change everything. We did everything we could, but the injury was too severe. Charlie's breath hitched. His chest tightened. He wanted to scream, to ask a million questions, but no words came. It felt like the room was closing in on him. His heart beat. The blood rushing in his ears was all he could hear. And then came the words that shattered everything. You've been paralyzed from the chest down. The silence that followed was suffocating. Charlie didn't speak. Not for a long, long time. He just stared at the doctor, his mind in a mess of confusion. This couldn't be real. This wasn't him. Not Charlie. But the look in the doctor's eyes told him it was true. But then, something inside Charlie sparked. A flicker of determination. Something that refused to die. He clenched his fists. Pain shot through his arms, but he didn't care. "I'll play again," Charlie said, his voice hoarse but resolute.
I play soccer again.
The doctor gave him a sad, knowing look before he turned and walked out of the room. The door clicked shut, and Charlie was left in the quiet with only his thoughts. His mother sat beside him, trying to comfort him, but Charlie could see the worry in her eyes. She wasn't just worried for him, she was worried for herself too. The days that followed were a blur. He barely noticed the visitors, family, friends, teammates, all of them with sad eyes, murmuring comforting words. Everyone except Charlie. They all felt the weight of the situation. But Charlie wasn't ready to feel sorry for himself. He wasn't going to accept this. Not yet. A week passed. Then another. The hospital room became his cage. It felt like everything around him was moving, but he was stuck. Time had stopped for him, and he couldn't stand it. He wasn't going to sit there, waiting for life to pass him by. He began working. Small movements, trying to make his body respond. Each day was agony. Every motion felt like lifting a mountain. His body screamed in protest, but Charlie pushed through it. His mother heard him working every day, pushing, fighting, desperate for some sign that his body was still alive. Then, one morning, someone new came into his life. A man named Felix. He had a rough edge, a no-nonsense attitude, but there was something about him that made Charlie believe, just for a moment, that maybe, just maybe, he could get through this. Felix showed up at 6 a.m. the next day. No knock, no warning. "I'm here to get you back on your feet," Felix said, his voice firm. Charlie didn't know what to think. He couldn't imagine what getting back on his feet meant anymore. But the fire inside him refused to be extinguished. He would do whatever it took. Felix picked him up, and they drove to a place Charlie didn't expect. It wasn't a rehab center. It was a gym, but not just any gym. Inside, there were people in wheelchairs, moving with surprising agility, playing soccer. The sight took Charlie's breath away. The ball glided across the floor. Players maneuvered skillfully. Their chairs moved across the court, like they were born to do this. It was shocking, inspiring, but it also hurt. Was this what he was supposed to do now? Was this his new reality? Jerry, a man in a wheelchair, noticed Charlie's reaction and gave him a knowing smile. "This is how you rebuild, Charlie. It's about staying active, finding new ways to push yourself." Charlie's mind raced. Is this really what I've become? He thought. Is this it? He looked at Jerry, frustration bubbling inside. "Do you think I'm just going to accept this? Sit in a wheelchair for the rest of my life?" Jerry didn't flinch. He didn't get angry. Instead, he nodded and calmly said, "This is about strength. Not the kind you're used to, but the kind that gets you through things you never thought possible. You don't have to accept it, but you do have to find a new way to live." The words hung in the air. Charlie didn't have an answer for that, but deep down, he knew Jerry was right. This wasn't the life he imagined, but it was life, and he wasn't going to waste it. The next day, Felix picked him up at 6 a.m. Training began. Charlie pushed through every exercise, every drill. His arms burned with each movement. He fell, he got up, he fell again and again. But this time, Felix was there, never letting him give up. Days turned into months, then years. The road wasn't easy. The pain didn't go away. But Charlie began to see results. His body grew stronger. He wasn't just sitting there. He was moving, living, playing. Every day, his body changed. Felix didn't leave him. Jerry didn't leave him. The people who believed in him, the ones who saw something he didn't even see in himself, never gave up. Charlie didn't just get stronger physically. He found a new purpose. He started helping others, people just like him. They had the same fear, the same uncertainty. But Charlie was living proof that no matter the obstacle, there was always another way. He began playing wheelchair soccer every week, sharing his story, encouraging others to push through their struggles. No matter the pain, no matter how impossible it seemed, he kept fighting. Charlie learned something he'd never forget. Life doesn't always go the way you want it to. Sometimes it's unfair, sometimes it's hard, but you can't give up. You can't let the setbacks define you. The road to success is built on failure, and you never know how close you are to a breakthrough. Charlie's journey was a reminder to everyone. No matter what life throws at you, there's always another way. Never stop fighting. Never stop moving forward.